This is Ben McGahee with Yamie Chess. I'm going to be your math teacher today. Yamie Chess is a math learning aid based on classic chess that helps students in math and science education for school. In this lesson, we will learn about different representations of data. In this lesson, we're going to see three different types of data that is presented. We see the table, the bar graph, and the line graph. Now let's begin with the table and examine its structure. Notice that in the table you have 4 rows going across, and then you have 4 columns going up and down vertically. And then each entry, ones I circled here, those are called like cells where a row and column meet. So notice that you have the category player, and then you have the players A, B, and C. And then you have category RBIs, and then you have the number of RBIs for each of the players A, B, and C. So a table is a nice way to present data and organize all of the information that's given. Now if we look at our next graph, we have what's called a bar graph, and this is kind of more visual versus the table. Notice that we have a horizontal axis, or we call it the x-axis. It usually represents for time. And then we have a vertical axis. It's called the y-axis, where we usually represent something other than time. In this case, it would be the height for our water level in Park City. And Park City is a fictitious name. It's not real. And then we look at the bars, and the height of each bar tells us how high the water is for each given day of the week. So we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then in our last data representation, what we have is called a line graph. So it's very similar to the bar graph. It's just that it has points and then line segments connected to the points instead of the bars. So you can notice that in the year 2011, that if you have the stock price of our company, this is our made-up company, Computer Crackers, that the price would be $20 per share. And then unlike in 2013, the stock price is even higher. It is at $100 per share. So these are just nice ways to present data in kind of a visual format, and makes it very organized and easy to read. So what I'm going to do is just ask you some kind of quick questions about each of these different representations of data for practice, so that way when you get to the you try problems on your own, you'll be ready to tackle those. So let's look at the White Stars baseball table. We see that players A, B, and C all have a certain number of home runs, RBIs, and certain batting averages. Now, in case you're not really into baseball, an RBI is basically for runs batted in. So, say for example, you have a player at the plate at bat, and he hits the ball, and then there's another player on base that like scores a run. Then he basically hits a run batted in for that player, and then it counts towards his RBI total. And of course, a home run is when you hit the baseball, over the fence or out of the park. So if we look at, let's say we want to count the total number of RBIs out of players A, B, and C, then we see player A has 1, and then player B has 2, and then player C has 5. And so we add all those together and get 1 plus 2 is 3, and 3 plus 5 is 8. So we have 8 RBIs total. Now let's say we want to calculate, like maybe a percentage, say of what percent did player B hit out of all the total RBIs together. So if we recall what percent is, percent is defined as the part over the whole. So that's like a fraction, the part over the whole, and then we multiply that by 100, because 100% is the total, or the whole thing. So if we look at what we know as the whole, we notice that 8, total number 8 RBIs, that would be the whole. So we would write 8 on the bottom. And then we look at player B, the total number of RBIs that he has, and he has 2, so that would be the part, so 2 out of 8. And then we multiply that by 100. So the easiest way to do this is we could simplify the fraction 2 over 8 and then multiply that by 100. So what we'll do is we'll reduce 2 over 8 and so 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then we'll have 4 goes into 100 how many times? So we'll do some division to the side. So 4 goes into 100. Let's see, 4 goes into 10 twice, 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. And then 10 minus 8 is 2. Bring down the 0. And 4 goes into 20 5 times. And so we have 5 times 4 is 20. And 20 minus 20 is 0, so that goes in evenly. We have no remainder, so 25. And then that cancels out and becomes 1. So we have 25%. So this means that player B hit 25% out of the total RBIs for his team. Okay. So let's look at the water level in Park City for the bar graph. So one question I want to ask you is that which day has the highest water level in Park City? Which day of the week has the highest water level in Park City? And so the way to find that is just to look at the height of each bar and then find the one that is has the tallest height, and we see that that's on Monday. And Monday has a height of 8 feet. Now, which day has the smallest height for the water level in Park City? That would be on Friday. And that's between, right in the middle, between 0 and 2 feet, so that'd be 1 foot. And then if we look at our last graph, that's the line graph for stock of computer crackers. And that's our made-up company again. Let's say if I want to ask you a question here. Notice that the stock prices are always increasing from year to year, right? Which year, between what 2 years is the stock price increasing the most? So, between what 2 years is the stock price increasing the most? Well, let's see. In order to do that, you would need to subtract between any 2 given years or consecutive years. So if you start with 2010 to 2011, we'll subtract 2011 has $20 per share minus 2010, $0 per share. So it gives us $20 per share. And then we go from 2011 to 2012, and we see that 2012 is kind of in the middle between 40, 50, 60, so about 50. And then we know 2011 is 20, so 50 minus 20 is 30. And then we look from 2012 to 2013. So we have 2013, yep, would be about 100. And then minus 2012 was about 50. So 100 minus 50 is 50. So we can see that the greatest increase for any 2 consecutive years would be between 2012 to 2013. So these would be the 2 years where the stock price increases the most. So I have 3 U-try problems for you to try on your own. Feel free to look back at the table, bar graph, and line graph that I presented to you earlier. You can feel free to rewind the video, and so that way you can answer the questions. So let's read the questions out loud. We have, what percent of the total number of home runs, that's the HRs in the table, did player A have? So use the idea of percent that I showed you earlier. That would be the part over the whole times 100 would give you percent. And then the next question, which days was the water level the same for in Park City? And then I'll also ask you, what is the water level on those days? So that's a 2-part question. You need to know the water level, what days was it the same, and what is the actual water level on those days. And then the third question is with the line graph. If you invested 45 shares of stock in computer crackers in 2012, then how much money did you invest for that year? 45 shares of stock, computer crackers, 2012. How much money did you invest in that year? So I'll give you some time to work out those problems. Feel free to pause the video and also rewind if you need to look over the table, bar graph, and line graphs. And we'll go over the answers. Okay, so let's look at the answers here to our 3 questions. So let's go over the first problem. So for the answer, we get about 43%. And let's see how that works. If we go back to our table to look at player A, and we see that he hits a total number of 3 home runs, and the total number of home runs hit by players A, B, C combined would be 3 plus 0 is 3 plus 4 is 7. So we need to do 3 out of 7 and then times that by 100. And so you can use a calculator and do 3 out of 7, hit enter, and then multiply by 100. And you should get something like, 42 point, about, if you round to the nearest, let's see, 42.857, something like that. And if you round to the nearest percent, this would be about 43%. So that's how we got to find that player A hits about 43% of the total number of home runs for the White Stars baseball team. Okay, so let's look at the second question. The answer for question 2 is Wednesday and Thursday. Water height was the same level and it's at 2 feet. So we look at the bar graph for water level in Park City, and we notice that Wednesday and Thursday had the same height, bars of the same height. And we notice that it's about 2 feet. And so that's how we found out that the height of the water level is 2 feet. And Wednesday and Thursday have the same water level. Okay, so last but not least, question number 3, you should get $2,250 invested in 2012. So let's see how we found that number. So it looks like we wanted to invest 45 shares. In the company Computer Crackers. And that's our made-up company. And so we trust a lot in our stock with Computer Crackers, so we want to invest a good bit with them so we can get a good return. But we want to find out how much money that we're going to buy into the company, invest. So what we need to do is we know that in 2012 we have a stock price of $50 per share. And to find the total amount of money, we multiply by the number of shares that we have. We have 45 shares. And so you can do some multiplication on the side. You could do the 45 times 5. I might did this in one lesson earlier. You lay the 0 out and add it at the end. So multiply the digits without the zeros. So 5 times 5, 25. Carry the 2. 4 times 5 is 20. Plus 2 is 22. And then we add that 0 at the end. Because they had the 0, $2,250. So that is how we found that answer for question 3. $2,250 we invested in 2012 in computer cracker stock. Well, this has been McGahee, and I want to thank you for watching this lesson on representations of data, and please stay tuned for more lessons on YamieChess.com, and have a great day.